Yeah, so traditionally, flares are used that either contain silver iodide or calcium chloride to seed clouds. And what they're really trying to do is provide a nucleus for the moisture in the clouds to attract to. Um, but what we've done on this side is we've used a traditional agricultural technology, and that's the technology of applying a charge, an electrical charge, to spray droplets as we're normally applying pesticides to protect crops. We're using that same technology to seed clouds. So instead of applying a charge to, say, a pesticide, we're just using water. We're applying a charge to water droplets that are ejected from the nozzles, and then those are taken up by the updrafts, the inflow into the clouds, and then those are providing the cloud condensation nuclei in place of the silver iodide or calcium chloride.
So versus the traditional method, is this more cost effective?
It's cheaper because we're just using water, right? But there's a capital expenditure. As you can see behind me, we have an agricultural aircraft. These typically run $1 million, $1.5 million in cost to purchase one of these. So that's the expensive part of it. Like I said, these are used in agricultural aviation for protecting crops. So there are aerial applicators across the nation and across the world that already have these aircraft. It would really be just a matter of contracting the services with these aerial applicators. Then you wouldn't have to buy the aircraft. You could just lease them and have them on contract.
So take me through the process of monitoring the weather ahead of time, going out and flying, where you're flying, what level you're flying, and then kind of hitting the right mark there and making sure you're doing it right.
Yeah. So as you know, clouds are our moisture reservoir. If we don't have clouds, we can't do cloud seeding. So in times of extreme drought, we don't have the opportunities to seed clouds. And so what it means for us is that we need to take advantage of these seeding opportunities when we have them. And that's typically during our better years, right, when you have available moisture. So I work with a team of pilots and meteorologists and physicists for this cloud seeding research that I do for USDA. And what we do is our meteorologist monitors the meteorological conditions several days in advance, and usually knows when the seeding opportunities are going to be best. And so he'll give our pilot a notice, a day or two in advance and say, hey, let's be ready to seed on this particular day. What the pilot then will do is he'll load up our aircraft with water. We have an electrostatic system, spray application system on this aircraft. You can see the nozzles behind me there. They have the ability to charge the water droplets as they exit the nozzle. So the pilot will fill up the hopper with water. And when the meteorologist says, hey, it's time to fly, he'll take off in the aircraft, go up beneath the cloud base. Once he senses inflow or updraft into the clouds, he'll turn the spray system on, releasing the charged water droplets up into the clouds. They get transported by this inflow up into the clouds and distributed in the clouds. And in that environment, they interact with the water molecules in the clouds. We charge the droplets the opposite charge, native charge of the droplets in the cloud, so they're actually attracted to each other. So we get collision of our charged droplet with the water molecules in the cloud. They get collision and coalescence from those droplets. And then you have those collisions enough times, and then that droplet then becomes large enough to precipitate out as rainfall.
So when you say sensing updraft, is it a bumpy ride? Is this kind of a dangerous flight?
Yeah. So you can feel it. It's like an elevator, really. And in the airplanes, they have this vertical speed indicator. It tells you how fast the airplane is rising. And it's like an elevator shaft. I've flown on these research flights like this, and sometimes it's as much as 2,000 feet a minute. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting that the pilot will put point the nose down and try to just dive right back out. So it's really interesting. It's not that bumpy, actually. Sometimes it is, when you get those convective currents, but basically it's fairly smooth. A lot of times you don't even know that you're rising that quickly. The pilot knows and tries to just bring us back down below the base of the cloud.
Does this ever, or could it possibly induce lightning?
Lightning is in some of these thunderstorms, and on some of our research flights, we were flying right there where the lightning was. What's interesting is I have an electrostatic field meter in the back of the aircraft that I monitor. I'm looking at the charge in the air. Primarily, I'm looking at the charge that I'm creating with my electrified droplets, right? But when we're in a thunderstorm, or really close to a thunderstorm, I can see the electrical charge in the atmosphere building around us. And then when lightning, when it strikes or discharges, I can see an immediate reading where the electrostatic field is discharged. I can actually see it from my field meter. So it's really interesting to be in and around these environments. We never get struck by lightning. And I think the risk is fairly low when you're not grounded in an aircraft like this. But yes, you can be right in the middle of it.
So this has been successful in Texas, I take it.
Yes.
Are there other parts of the country where it is successful and parts of the country where it's not?
Yeah, so Emily, right now we're in research and development phase with it. We've been collecting data. We started in 2017, but it's very expensive. It costs about $2,000 an hour to do these flights. So we had some initial funding in 2017 to do the initial research. We compiled all that, analyzed the data. It was really good. So in 2021, we applied for some an innovation competition through USDA, along with I think about 30 other teams. And we were chosen as one of the top 3 teams to receive $100,000 in funding to collect additional data on this technology, which we did this last year, 2022. So we were able to add to that data set, and we're going to be compiling the results from 2017 and then last year together for a peer-reviewed manuscript. So the results were really good. What we found is for a lot of the major meteorological parameters that you might be interested in, precip mass, precip flux, volume, area, those types of things, lifetime of the storm. Many of those important ones like precip mass and precip flux, we documented 2 to 3 times what the conventional cloud seeding technology would provide. So traditional cloud seeding normally gives you an increase of 10 to 15%. This is for convective seeding, not for snowpack. Ours was showing about twice that for some of the real important parameters, and then other ones even 3 times. So the potential for this technology is very high in being able to increase the amount of rainfall that we get from these storms. Now, the downside of it is that the aircraft is expensive, so you have to adjust for that $2,000 an hour. But I mean, the question really comes down to is what is water worth to us, right? It's becoming more and more scarce, and the value is going up. So we need to work with some ag economists to do an economic study, really, to look at what that point is where this technology would provide an advantage, an economic advantage, over the conventional cloud seeding technologies that are used today.
Is this going to be practical down the road in the future? Is this something that will be something we need to do in order to water crops?
Yeah, I think so. We look at groundwater and aquifers and how they're not being recharged. It takes a long time to recharge the aquifers. Our reservoir levels are down, streams and lakes levels are down, especially in the desert Southwest. Farmers are having to plow up their orchards because there's not enough water to water the crops. I was in California just a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this firsthand, almond orchards being plowed up because they take a lot of water to grow. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And I think it's going to be feasible from the standpoint that this is scalable. This technology is scalable because we have aerial applicators in every single state in this nation that have these types of aircraft. They need to be trained to seed clouds, but they have thousands of hours of flight time using these systems. Maybe not at 10,000 feet, they're more like 10 feet off the ground, but you can train them to seed clouds. And there's a way to do that. And it's scalable, and these applicators are all around the country and around the world. So this is not something that could be used just in the United States. It could be used around the world. There's problems in South Africa and all over the place. So it is a very practical solution. The results have been really good that we've seen so far, and it's been repeatable from 2017 to last year. They're very consistent results that we've seen with that. And really what we're trying to do now is take a look at that data set and see what parameters gave us the best bang for our buck. What was the timing of the storm? How soon were we able to get there? What types of clouds did it work best on? Small clouds, medium clouds, large cloud systems. There's a lot of things that we need to kind of data mine the data set and see how it can be best utilized. But the results that we have overall, were outstanding. I think there's actually ways that we can make that even better by optimizing some of the important parameters.
Do the local residents know what's happening, and how do they feel?
So in Texas, Emily, the property owners subscribe to these programs, the weather modification program, and they actually pay a tax. I think it's so much per acre of land that they have that goes in to support the program that Texas has been doing for over 20 years now. And so they want the water, they need the water to grow their crops, and even for wildlife. A lot of them have exotic game ranches, and those game, they need something to eat, right? So it's very needed, especially in the desert Southwest, and there's a lot of support for it. I think there's just a misunderstanding about what we're trying to do here. I'm an engineer. I work with scientists. This is really all about science and technology and using it to our advantage.
I was going to say, are there some conspiracy theorists out there that are very curious about what we're doing and
worrying? It's different. I mean, some people think we're playing God, but it's not. We're using climatology and meteorology to better understand these systems, these weather systems, so that we can have the water resources that we need as a population, not only here in the US, but around the world. So there's not much life without water. I mean, even on Mars, they're looking for water, right? And you need water to grow crops. So we need food and water, and they're really inextricably linked together. So if we can use our science and technology and engineering skills to allow us to harness more of our water resources, the water that typically just floats over our heads and doesn't fall out as precipitation, then that's going to help everyone.
Right. So you're not creating clouds, you're just kind of squeezing the clouds to get the moisture.
Exactly. And as you know, it's an open system. So we actually just provide kind of a spark plug for what Mother Nature already wants to do. We're just kind of helping get the process started. And then it's an open system. So there's a lot of available moisture out there that continues to feed into that cloud and to keep it going for a lot longer than it normally would.
Do you think there's any long-term impacts that we should be concerned with?
All we're applying is water, charged water. So no, and if a storm is ever, what do you call it, storm warned, something like that, I think is what the meteorologists call it, then we don't seed during those times. So there's mechanisms in place to make sure that we don't cause any flooding with this. So the state of Texas actually regulates the weather modification program in Texas, and so there's rules and regulations and that are followed by any of these applications that we make.
That's all I have, Dan, unless you have anything else to add.
There are only a few states in the United States that actually have rain enhancement programs. That's Texas has, I think there's 5 or 6 different areas within Texas that are all part of the Texas Weather Modification Association. New Mexico has been trying to initiate a program. I think they started a pilot program last year, but this is for convective systems. And then Arizona would be another state that would be a beneficiary of that, this technology. They don't really have a program in place, not for the last, say, 25 years or so, but they have an increasing population, and the drought is pretty bad there too. So there are a few states that really could benefit from this technology. And then North Dakota does some weather mod work up there too, but it's mainly for hail suppression because they get some very strong, severe storms up there, especially in the early springtime. I think the March, April, May timeframe. So they're really trying to protect the crops more so than providing rain enhancement. But the rest of the programs around the nation are more about snowpack augmentation than convective rain enhancement.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. While you're here, check out some other videos you just may like.